welcome to our final session on this amazing body that we live in. It's been designed to heal itself, and it'll heal itself if you give it the right conditions. Before we begin, I'd like you to bow your heads with me. I'd like to open with prayer. Father in heaven, thanks so much for bringing each one of us here today. Give us understanding, Father, that we might keep your law. Yea, we shall observe it with our whole hearts, says Psalm 139. Thank you, Father. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Many people are sick today because the plumbing doesn't work. And if the plumbing doesn't work, nothing works. In our last lecture, we looked at what happens when the food gets out of our gut and into the blood. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you on a fascinating journey. And this journey will reveal how the food on our plate today is being broken down to microscopic little particles and absorbed into the blood. You see, anything that goes into our gastrointestinal tract is not part of us until it gets broken down to these tiny substances and then absorbed into the blood. So we're going to go on a journey. The gastrointestinal tract has two openings. This is one opening up here, and we know where the other one is. And it's about 8.5 meters long. And yes, we're going to be able to cover it in about 50 minutes. So let's begin by going to the mouth. The mouth is where everything goes in. The mouth is the only part of our whole gastrointestinal tract that we have say over. We have say over what goes in. We have say over when it goes in. We have say over how long it stays in there. We have say over the environment on its entry. As one writer said, she said, cast off care and anxious thought when you sit to dine. We should be eating in a peaceful environment. We will digest so much better. And notice in the mouth, it's the only part of the body that has exposed bones, which is the teeth. And the teeth are there for a purpose. They're there to chew. Chew, chew, chew. Now this is a function that has been lost today. Because so many people are busy, they don't have time to chew. You might have heard the old saying, we should be drinking our food and chewing our drinks. What does it mean, drinking our food? We should be chewing our food so much that it breaks down almost to like a thick cream. Oh, the rest of your gastrointestinal tract will be so happy because there's no teeth anywhere else in your gastrointestinal tract. It is said that we should be counting ideally about 30 chews. So it's a good idea to put your knife and fork down before each mouthful. And hopefully wherever you eat, you've got a very nice view out the window so that you can sit and eat with ease. So the first organ we're going to look at is the mouth. And the mouth's pH is alkaline. And one of the main enzymes that's released in the mouth, most people don't realise digestion begins in the mouth. It is lingual lipase. Lingual lipase is an enzyme that breaks down short and medium chain fatty acids. And short and medium chain fatty acids are found in your saturated fats. So your saturated fats, not your unsaturated fats, but your saturated fats, their breakdown begins in the mouth. If you'd like to pursue this a little bit more, Dr. Bruce Fife has written about 6 books on the wonders of coconut oil. And he explains in there how your sublingual glands release lingual lipase that breaks down saturated fat. So the saturated fat is unique in the fat family because the breakdown begins in the mouth. Another enzyme that's released in the mouth is salivary amylase. And that salivary amylase is called ptyalin. And ptyalin is the enzyme that begins the starch breakdown, or as we looked at in our last lecture, you could call it carbohydrates. But that lingual lipase is, we're going to ptyalin. Ptyalin is not in the mouth until the molars are through. So the first teeth that a baby gets is 4 at the bottom and 4 at the top. Traditionally, they're called milk teeth because that's all babies should have, milk. It's also taste time. Taste time can happen when a baby can sit, when a baby can pick it up, and when a baby can actually put it in their mouth. I don't know about you, but I'm not interested in being fed on my back slop. And isn't that what many people are feeding babies? Babies should not eat food until they got teeth, they can sit, they can feed themselves. Doesn't that make sense? And another reason, remember what we're looking at here, we're looking at common sense, we're looking at science, and I'm showing you the science, and we're also looking at history. Babies traditionally have not been fed food until they were 2, sometimes 3 in some cultures. They weren't even fed food. So what did they have? They just had breast milk. Let me give you a story to illustrate. But before I give you the story, I want to tell you the next teeth that come through are the molars. They come through here, and they're the grinders. What do we grind? Grain. And when the grinders are fully through, then the glands in the mouth release the salivary amylase ptyalin. That means no baby should have starch. Toddlers should not have starch until the molars are through. And the molars come through anywhere between 14 and 22 months of age. My daughter Emma, she's got a little boy named John Clancy, and John Clancy is, I think, about 17 months of age. He's hardly eaten any food. He has a little bit of banana sometimes, and his molars are just coming through now. Most baby feeding brochures are written by Heinz. Have you noticed? What are they going to tell you? The earlier you feed the baby, the more money they're going to make out of you. So let me give you the story to illustrate. This happened about a year ago. A lady contacted me. She said, my little boy, he was 3 months preemie, so that's very, very small. She said, he's 10 months old now, and he's so thin, and his stomach's so big. I said, what's he eating? She said, he has breast milk, but we're giving him porridge for breakfast, and bread, and biscuits, and pasta. I said, oh, how many teeth does he have? 4. He has no molars. So because he has no ptyalin produced in the mouth, can you see he's not able to break that starch down? And what's happening to his stomach? And he's getting thinner. I said, oh dear. He has no molars, which means his mouth isn't producing the salivary amylase ptyalin, which will break down the starch. She said, what will I do? I said, just give him fruits and vegetables, but not the potato. He can have sweet potato, because when that's cooked, any starch granule is broken down to a simply digestible sugar. She wrote back to me 2 weeks later, email. She said, the stomach's gone down. He's actually starting to put on weight. I heard nothing for, must have been about 5, 6 months. She said, Barbara, my little one's stopped crawling. He won't crawl. He's actually won't eat a single thing. So I answered back and I said, is anything happening? She said, oh, he's teething. I said, when they're teething, especially the big molars, they go off their food. He's not crawling. Well, remember, he was preemie, so he's a lot later than most babies. I said, he'll start to crawl again. She said, what if he gets brain damaged? I said, what? Where's this coming from? And what if his muscles start to deteriorate? I wrote back and I said, why would he have brain damage? You know, for thousands of years, children were not fed food till they were 2 or 3. Breast milk has everything. God didn't make a mistake. Then her father emailed me. I'm a scientist at Loma Linda University. I'm very concerned about my grandson. I believe that he could be brain damaged if he's not getting any more food than breast milk. Aha, this is where it's coming from. And my wife is a physiotherapist. She believes his muscles are deteriorating. We believe he should go to hospital and be tested to see if he's getting the right nutrients. So I wrote back and I said, and what sort of test are they going to give him in hospital? Are they going to take his blood? How traumatic is that for a little one? I said, if they decide that he needs more food, what are they going to do? put a funnel down his throat and force feed him, and of course it'll all just come up. Oh, they're civilised, they don't do that. So they put a tube down the nose. How traumatic is that? Or they'll put a drip in and feed him by a drip. How traumatic is that? What if he gets so traumatised he even stops breastfeeding? And I said to him, for thousands of years, babies never fed. They didn't eat food till they were 2 or 3. I said, you know what that means? Einstein, Galileo, Mozart, Bach. We're not fed food as babies. Oh, he said. A month later, I get an email from the mother. He's eating again, the teeth are through, he's crawling. The grandfather, or the girl's father, he emailed me back, he said, thank you so much. He said, can I give you some money? I said, oh, if you want. $400 went into my account. I took that as a big thankful, because he knows, well, what are they going to do to them? Babies have only been fed food in this last 100 years. And how many people today have gut problems? So when a baby is fed starch and they have no molars, no ability to break it down, malabsorption syndrome can set up in the gut. I have a lecture on YouTube. It's called What Shall I Feed My Baby? So anyone who has a baby, get them to watch that lecture. What if the baby's underweight? Well, if the mother's little, guess what? The baby's going to be little. It's like one lady. She said, I got so much pressure from the baby health centre because I'm not feeding my baby food. And on the scale, my baby's just under. I said to her, but look at you. Look at your husband. You're only slight. You're going to have a slight baby. I would say to the doctor, don't compare my baby with the Samoan baby. Huh? If the baby's happy, if the baby's got lots of wet nappies, if the baby's responsive, you see, they're your signs. So they're the only 2 things regarding digestion that begin in the mouth. It's important to chew, because when you chew, the brain's getting the message, oh, it's a bit of fat in there, oh, it's a bit of protein, oh, it's a bit of starch. And the brain gives messages to the organs further down. We've got a bit of starch coming, we've got a bit of protein. So if someone's going chew, chew, swallow, these organs are saying, what's coming? The brain says, I don't know. It's not in the mouth long enough for me to find out. So it's very important to chew. The next organ is the stomach. And the stomach has a pH that is acid. If someone says, I've got a very acid stomach, I say, fantastic, it's supposed to be acid. But by the way, how do you know it's acid? It hurts. Well, that's not the acid. That means you haven't got a thick mucosa lining. What causes the thick mucosa lining? It's water. Because mucus is 99% water. When people are hydrated, their stomach lining can be a little bit too thin. The stomach is lined with big folds like this. And there are gastric glands that line the folds, and 2/3 of these gastric glands produce mucus. And the reason for that mucus is to protect the stomach lining from being burnt by the acid. Now see these little glands down here? They release hydrochloric acid. They also release pepsinogen, and pepsinogen and hydrochloric acid unite in an acid environment and produce pepsin. And pepsin is the enzyme that breaks down protein. Protein is the only food that is broken down in the stomach. No other food is broken down in the stomach. So it's pepsin. Pepsin breaks down protein. Now if someone's drinking with their meals, they're watering down their hydrochloric acid. And then it's very difficult for hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen to unite. And if a person's drinking with their meals, then they bring the pH of their stomach from 2.5 up to 3.5, and pepsin will only work in an acid environment. And such an Aussie habit, isn't it, to drink with the meals. Our guests are not used to not having water with the meals. And some of my guests say, I just keep reaching for the water. I said, yeah, that's the habit. But you can rewire your brain. If you're well hydrated when you sit to eat, you will not need to drink with your meals. What also is released down here is the intrinsic factor. Now, the intrinsic factor is essential for the absorption of vitamin B. So I'm going to give you the vitamin B12 story. Intrinsic factor is essential for the absorption of B12. So see my thumb here, that's vitamin B12. And in food, it's linked with an R protein. When it gets into the stomach, hydrochloric acid causes a release of the R protein from B12. Intrinsic factor is released in the stomach, so all through the small intestine, B12 and intrinsic factor are floating. And just before they get to the ileum, which is the last part, intrinsic factor and B12 unite, and that allows the B12 to be absorbed. When the B12 is absorbed, it then gets into the enterohepatic circulation, which is a circulation between the liver and this area. Most B12 we eat is recycled. Do you know what that means? Someone can have no B12 in their diet for 30 years before they show a deficiency. From what I've just shown you, can see that the deficiency from B12 is mostly caused because of low hydrochloric acid, and it can be caused because of a lack of the intrinsic factor. Well, what would cause low hydrochloric acid and lack of the intrinsic factor? When a person is eating all day long, overburdens the stomach. When a person is drinking lots with their meals, waters down the acids. If a person is stressed out with their meals, waters down the acid. If a person's eating a huge meal just before they go to bed at night, poor old stomach. Everybody else is asleep, but the stomach can't sleep because it's got all this food in it. And that overburdens the stomach, and day by day by day, as this is happening, it reduces its production of hydrochloric acid. I have never met anyone with too much hydrochloric acid. I have yet to meet that person. But there are many people who suffer from low hydrochloric acid. You look at dogs. Dogs have about 6 times the hydrochloric acid that humans have. Do they get reflux? Do they get ulcers? Most stomach ulcers happen because of a thin lining, because the person's dehydrated. We had a pathologist do our program. He said, we need studies on coffee. He said, 1 cup of coffee requires 5 glasses of water to account for the dehydrating agents in a cup of coffee. Now, when you realise that fact, most Australians are dehydrated. How many Aussies have gut problems? And if someone gets reflux, what's reflux or heartburn? That's the acid coming up into the esophagus. Now, God put here a valve. It's called the cardiac sphincter, and it's a double-layered valve, and that's to prevent any acid going up. So how come the acid gets through? Well, when a person's eating their large meal just before they go to bed, then they lie down, and what's gravity doing? It's pushing against the valve. It's not the odd day this might happen, but day after day after day, the big amount of food in the stomach is weakening that valve. And that valve is a muscle. It looks like this. And when it's relaxed, it's closed. When it tightens, it opens. So if someone's stressed out and the muscles tighten, it can open. To cure reflux or heartburn, we should be eating breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, and tea like a pauper. And taking magnesium, because magnesium is the ultimate muscle relaxant. So anyone that comes to Misty Mountain with heartburn, they usually go home without it. Because we serve breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper, and for someone like that, I give them magnesium 4 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and we just serve a thin soup at night, and then just before they go to bed. One man came to us and he'd been on Nexium and the equivalent for 25 years. Is it working? 25 years? It's not working. And what's the definition of insanity? To do what you've always done and expect different results. Now, I'm not criticising this person because they don't know. Most people are sick through ignorance. Proverbs 14 verse 6 states, knowledge is easy to him that understands. My aim is to give you an understanding of this gut so you automatically have the knowledge on how to treat it. So number one, we should be eating breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper. You've only got one stomach, have you noticed? Only one. Cows can eat all day long because they've got 4 or 5 stomachs. And the research shows that digestion takes 3.5 to 4 hours. Then the stomach likes a rest. Because as you'll see as we go down the gastrointestinal tract, your nutrients are mostly absorbed in the first part of the small intestine. So even when your stomach's empty, you're still getting nutrients. The only way we can keep 5 hours between a meal is to have a high fibre diet. You see, fibre slowly releases the glucose. Generous amounts of protein. And in our last lecture, we saw that the best proteins are legumes, nuts and seeds. And healthy fats. What are the healthy fats? These are fats that come from the hand of the Creator. So there's your avocados, your nuts, your seeds, your coconut. And the 2 fats that are extracted from the flesh of the plant, which means they can easily be extracted, and traditionally have been extracted in a woman's kitchen, is olive oil and coconut oil. The type of oil you eat was usually determined by where you live. If you live in Europe, it would be the olive oil. If you live in the South Pacific Islands near the equator, it would be the coconut. It was probably about 6 months ago that the FDA put a statement on social media, be careful of the coconut oil, it's not as safe as we thought. How crazy is that? The South Pacific Islanders have enjoyed incredible health for thousands of years. FDA, America. What, does America grow coconuts? So what are they going to tell you? They don't want you to eat coconuts because they don't sell them, sorry. But don't often come down to that. So what do you do if a person has low hydrochloric acid? Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man. The lemon is acid, and it's acid where it should be, which is the stomach. So having the juice of a lemon in a little hot water just before the meal will help the hydrochloric acid levels. Also a little cayenne pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper in a little water just before the meal, that'll wake anything up. Cayenne pepper is a blood stimulant. It's not a nervous system stimulant like caffeine, alcohol, or nicotine. It is a blood stimulant. And Leviticus 17:11, the Bible says the life of the flesh is in the blood. And that's why cayenne pepper is such a remarkable herb. It boosts blood to any area where you apply it. Now we're going to go through the pyloric sphincter, which is the valve at the bottom of the stomach. And we're going to go to the duodenum. This is the first part of the small intestine. Notice in the duodenum, we've got the liver, the gallbladder, emptying into the neck of the pancreas into the duodenum, and we've got the pancreas emptying into the duodenum. So first of all, we're going to look at the gallbladder. The gallbladder, via the bile duct, it releases bile into the small intestine, and bile emulsifies or breaks down your unsaturated fats. So these are all the other fats. All your polyunsaturated fats, a lot of them found in your nuts and your seeds. This is an alkaline environment. So now we've come back to alkaline. The pancreas is the other organ. The pancreas is also releasing things into the duodenum. And the pancreas releases pancreatic amylase. Now up in the mouth, there's salivary amylase. You remember salivary amylase? Your salivary amylase is your chylin and it breaks down starch. Now starch digestion began in the mouth. It was put on hold in this acid environment, and now pancreatic amylase wakes it up and finalises starch digestion. The pancreas also releases pancreatic lipase, and lipase is an enzyme that breaks down fat. So pancreatic lipase, it helps to break down finally the unsaturated fat. So the unsaturated fat is emulsified by the bile, and then the pancreatic lipase further breaks it down. And we also have coming out of the pancreas trypsin. And trypsin is an enzyme that breaks down protein. What you've also got coming out of the pancreas is chymotrypsin. And chymotrypsin also breaks down protein. Let's go back to the stomach. Pepsin began protein digestion, and trypsin and chymotrypsin finalised protein digestion. Here's protein. And in the stomach, pepsin breaks down the protein to peptides and polypeptides. And then that floats down to the duodenum, where trypsin and chymotrypsin break down the peptide to amino acid, the polypeptide down to an amino acid peptide, and then amino acid. I hope I haven't lost you. I've got some good news. It's actually getting a bit easier now. Students, what area of the gastrointestinal tract is the main part of digestion? What organ is the main organ of digestion? It's the pancreas. It's the pancreas. Because can you see what the pancreas is doing? It's finalising starch digestion. It's finalising fat digestion. It's finalising protein digestion. And that explains why when someone has pancreatic cancer or inflammation of the pancreas or pancreatitis, they often die from malnutrition. Can you see why? Trypsin, chymotrypsin, and pepsin are what's called proteolytic enzymes. Proteolytic enzymes are enzymes that break down protein. God, in His goodness, wisdom, and mercy, has put some proteolytic enzyme in some foods. One proteolytic enzyme is bromelain, and that comes from the neck or the core of the pineapple, and papain, which is extracted from the papaya plant. And you can buy tablets that contain bromelain and papain. And can you see if someone's got pancreatic problems, they should take those supplements so that they can come in and help to break down their foods. And if someone has liver or pancreatic problems, what would be the best fat for them? A fat that starts or has its breakdown in the mouth. What fat's that? Coconut. Because coconut's breakdown happens under the action of lingual lipase. So when saturated fat gets down to the duodenum, it does not need bile and it does not need pancreatic lipase. Isn't that good news? No wonder they used to call the coconut the jewel of the Pacific. So when the FDA says, coconut's not as safe as we thought, this is a line from the Great Deceiver, I'm afraid. Let me draw a picture of what the lining of that small intestine looks like to show you where the food's absorbed. Lining our small intestine are villi. And the villi have a lacteal going up in the middle. And the villi also have blood network going all the way through. And as we looked at earlier, this is covered by a thick turf wall. And that thick turf wall, which was populated, the population began when we were born with our mother's microorganisms and the breast milk. And that thick turf wall is made up of microbes, and those microbes are responsible for the final breakdown of our food. Those microbes are responsible for the absorption. We looked at this last night. Of nutrients out of the gut and into the blood. Those microbes are responsible for protecting the blood against any harmful pathogens. And these microbes also play a very important role in nourishing the cells that line the gut. No wonder Hippocrates said that all disease begins in the gut, and he didn't know the detail of what I'm showing you here. But there are many things that people do today not realising that it's slaughtering their gut flora. Antibiotics break it down. Statin drugs break it down. Cortisone breaks it down. Contraceptive pill, ibuprofen drug, painkiller breaks it down. What have we got now? We now have a compromise in the breakdown of our food. We now have a compromise in the absorption through to the blood. We now have a compromise in our protection. We've lost our border protection. We now have the cells that line have lost their nourishment. Often people with irritable bowel, Crohn's disease, colitis, gastritis, you will find that this situation is happening in their gut. Something else has come along, and that is what they have done to the wheat. You see, in the hybridization of the wheat, which happened in the 50s, the structure of the wheat, the gluten or the protein structure, was changed. When wheat breaks down in the gut, it breaks down to a substance called glutamorphine. When dairy breaks down in the gut, it breaks down to something called caseomorphine. What's morphine? It's an opiate derivative. So let's say this is glutamorphine, and let's say this is dairy morphine. Let's have a look at what happens. So gluto and dairy morphine come along. Now this cell here is a very happy cell because it's getting nourishment from the gut flora, whereas this cell here is a very unhappy cell because it's got no nourishment. So glutamorphine comes here, that happy cell knocks off the morphine so only gluto gets through. Same with caseomorphine. Glutamorphine comes along here. This unhappy cell, because it has no nourishment, it cannot knock off the morphine. So glutamorphine gets into the blood, goes to the brain, the opiate receptor sites pick it up. There are whole books written on the link between wheat and dairy and mental illness. One book's called Grain Brain by Dr. David Pertmuller. He's a neuroscientist. He quotes schizophrenic patients of some psychiatrists. The psychiatrist taking them off wheat, dairy, refined sugar, 50% improvement. Dr. Bruce Fife in his book Stop Alzheimer's Now, the other book Stop Autism Now, he says the same thing. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride in her book Cut and Psychology, she's saying the same thing. These people don't know each other. They're all doctors with decades of clinical practice up their sleeve, all saying the same thing. Compromised gut contributing to brain problems. But have a look at the protection. You see, God put two things in place. He gave us nice strong hydrochloric acid in here so that if any harmful pathogens get into here, the hydrochloric acid wipes them out. But oh no, they're drinking with their meals and they're eating all day long and they're having their largest meal at night, so their hydrochloric acid is low. That's all right, we've got something further on. We've got our gut microbes. That'll knock it off. Oh no. They're taking antibiotics, they're on statin drugs, they're on the contraceptive pill. We've lost our border protection. Can you see how God put a lot of things in place so that these problems wouldn't arise? There's a great deceiver out there. The Bible says in Revelation chapter 12, he's deceived the whole world. He's deceived the whole world into thinking they can eat all day long. He's deceived the whole world into thinking they can stay up half the night on technology and eat a huge meal at night. He's deceived the whole world. And the people are sick. Isn't that true? The Bible is the devil's detector. When you read the Bible, you see Maddie's game. In the little book Ministry of Healing, it's one of the best books I've written on health, or read, on health. She pulls the curtains aside. She says pure air, sunshine, stopping all the stimulants, all the chemicals, the things that harm, going to bed early, exercising every day, eating nourishing food, the plant-based diet, drinking adequate water, trust in divine power. She says these are the true remedies. And Psalm 104 verse 14, the Bible says God gave herbs for the service of man. Where would you like me? Oh, please. Go to the gut. Why, certainly. That's my job. So how do we heal this gut? Once again, God has given us the remedy. Number one, to heal that gut, take a probiotic. For centuries, every nation has had a cultured food. If you're in Europe, it is sauerkraut, sourdough bread, kefir, yogurts. If you're in the Asian countries, you've got tofu, you've got miso. The cultured foods. The cultured foods contain the lactobacillus acidophilus. But if someone has major gut problems, they may need to buy a little powder, a probiotic powder, take it 3/4 of an hour before breakfast so it goes way down there. That's where we want it. Number two, stop. Stop the refined sugar. Nothing wrong with the sugar cane. Stop the dairy. Most people could handle the raw milk from Lulabelle in the paddock, but there's hardly any of that anymore. And by the way, we're the only creature that drinks milk past babyhood. Oh. And the hybridized wheat. Nothing wrong with the wheat that God made. Is there any left? Well, there are 2 wheats that you can buy, spelt and kamut, which have not been hybridized. Number 3, the herbs that serve us and serve us very well in the lining of the gut is aloe vera and stiprione. Both aloe vera and stiprione contain growth stimulants. They stimulate rapid healing in the lining of the gut. And the cells that line our gut are remade every 2 to 3 days. So the gut can heal quite quickly. Let me tell you a story of a man who came to our health retreat. He was late 60s. I said, what is your reason for coming to our retreat? He said, my wife. He said, my wife wanted to come. I said, oh. I said, are you on medication? He said, yeah, I'm on prednisone and I'm on anti-inflammatories because I've got irritable bowel disease. I went to the doctor recently and he can do no more for me. Do you know what the next step is? Starting to cut out parts of the colon. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Oh, I said, tell me about your diet. He has coffee for breakfast. For lunch, he has a sandwich with more coffee. At night, he has pasta, he has meat, he has veggies. and he always has 2 scotches at night. Loves his scotch. Can you see that this man doesn't realise that the very food he's eating is just feeding the irritation in his gastrointestinal tract? Now, at Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we don't serve any alcohol, we don't serve any refined sugar, or any dairy, or any wheat. So, he did the program. Remember, he's here for his wife, just to humour her. Health retreat. I said, can I give you some herbs? He said, oh, if you want. So I gave him Cyprion 4 times a day. I was watching him carefully because the first 2 days are juicing days. And he's got irritable bowel. Every day I said, how's it going? He said, pretty good. How many times have you gone today? He said, oh, 5. And he usually goes 6. He told me that every morning he walks along the beach in Port Macquarie because there's 5 toilets. And he needs 5 toilets. They're all his stops. That's in the morning before breakfast. He said, yeah, I was pretty impressed. I only went 3 times on the walk. You know, he walked near where he could go. Wednesday, our guests begin eating. I said, how's it going? He said, really good. I only had to go once this morning before breakfast. He said, all my pain has stopped. I don't have any more cramping. He said, I'm not bleeding from the colon anymore. Now, all that was happening while he's on the meds. I said, I think you can halve your cortisone. You're here, we're watching you. Now, if he halved his cortisone and he started going 20 times a day, it's real easy, just go back on the cortisone. And then as he implements things later, then he starts to reduce. But actually what I would do if he went 20 times a day, I'd give him Cyprium every half hour. Every half hour. See, at the health retreat we can watch him. He halved his cortisone. He stopped one of his anti-inflammatories. Thursday, how you going? Real good. I've had no reaction to stopping the drugs. Friday, how are you going? He said, real good. I've only went 4 times today to the toilet. That's over the whole day. He said, I can't even remember last time that happened. Sunday morning, he came running up to me. He said, I just did a 1-hour walk before breakfast and didn't have to go. Why did this man come to our health retreat? I'm just here for my wife, right? Sure. Do you think I have to tell that man to stop his scotch? Do I have to tell him that? Do you know that education shows him the only hope of better things on this planet is the education in right principles? I don't know what he did when he went home. I made some advice, but it's up to him. But what has his doctor just told him? There's no more I can do for you. What an amazing body we live in, and how quickly it responds when we start to give it the right things. And how wonderful that God's not only given us those guidelines, He's given us herbs. Herbs that come in to serve you. So now we're coming down to the large intestine. The appendix. Does God make mistakes? Of course He doesn't. The appendix has 2 main roles. One role is, it's called the colon's oil can, meaning it lubricates the contents of the colon so that it can pass with ease. And the second role is, it releases antibacterial fluid, so that if what's coming out of the small intestine is toxic, it can calm it down till it gets out of you. Why would it be toxic? Well, when meat breaks down, it putrefies, and putrefaction gives off poisonous fumes. And if that person's also having ice cream and donuts and sugar, that'll just feed the putrefaction. And if they're having alcohol, feed the putrefaction. So what's coming out of here is pretty bad. See, with a dog, they've got strong hydrochloric acid, so they can break down the meat very quickly. And their gut's only about 1.5 meters long. Ours is 8.5 meters long. It's in there too long. And now we come to the large intestine. One of the main functions of the large intestine is to take water out so stools are formed, so we can pass with ease. Because when the contents come out of the small intestine into the large intestine, it's liquid. And by the time it gets through here, the water's been taken out. So if a person's dehydrated, more water gets taken out than should be taken out, and then we're left with cement and rabbit pellets. Notice that there are a lot of grooves in the colon. It needs to be swept every day. Fibre sweeps the colon. And your highest fibre food is your plant foods, especially your vegetables. They sweep the colon every day. Dr. Kellogg, famous doctor, he said 3 intakes of food a day should equal 3 evacuations a day. Most people think if they go once a day, they're not constipated. Well, Dr. Kellogg said going once a day is constipation. And if you notice that the colon has a mind of its own, if you've got diarrhea in it you tell it to stop, it won't. And if you've got constipation, you tell it to go, it won't. It's got a mind of its own. So the colon needs gentle stimulation. So how do we gently stimulate the colon? To gently stimulate the colon, there are a few things that you can do. Number 1, this is Proverbs 17. No, it's not. Yes, it's 17:22. Merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bone. I'm a colonic irrigation therapist and teacher, and my teacher told me, she's passed now, when she taught me, she was in nearly her 80s, she said, tight mind, tight colon. We need to relax. We need to laugh more. Children laugh 125 times a day, so should we. Laughter relaxes the colon. Number 2, we need to be eating fibre, because fibre sweeps the colon and it needs to be swept every day. Number 3, we need to be having adequate water, at least 8 glasses of water a day. If you're my size, I'm 48 kilos, so I've got to have 8 glasses. 25 kilo weight to 1 litre of water. So 50 kilo, 2 litres of water. I'll leave the rest to you. And that water should be taken little by little by little by little all through the day. Stop half an hour before the meal, resume an hour and a half after the meal, so you don't water down your gastric juices. Number 4, position. What do I mean by position? Well, there is a muscle that's holding up the last part of the colon, and it's called puborectalis. And when a person sits on the throne, here's the throne, and when the person sits on the throne, puborectalis remains taut, and obviously things can get through. But if a person sits on the throne and put a little stool in front so that they are mimicking the squatting position and getting their knees up, puborectalis relaxes. And when puborectalis relaxes, the colon opens right up internally and the contents pass with ease. And in many countries today, people still squat to go to the toilet. When I was in Singapore earlier in the year, I went into a shopping mall and they had Westerner toilets and local toilets. And the local toilets are just a hole in the ground. And when I was in Punjab, very early in the year, I stayed in New Delhi before I flew home. I stayed in a 3-story apartment with a family. I had my own room and bathroom, and when I went into the bathroom, it's a hole in the floor. When I was in Africa a few years ago, it's a hole in the floor. Science now shows it is the best way to go, because when you are in the squatting position, puborectalis opens and the contents pass with ease, and that takes all pressure off the anus. And if a person can't go and they decide to force their way sitting, it puts huge amount amounts of pressure on the anus and something's got to give. And they often give, and they're called hemorrhoids, and they're incredibly painful. And I remember assisting for a hemorrhoidectomy, and oh dear, it's almost painful to watch. Think how are they going to feel when they wake up? Oh, nothing compared to how they're going to feel when they pass their first bowel motion, not even knowing about puborectalis, and if they'd squatted it'd be a lot easier. Ooh. When I was in Bali, I think 18 months ago, Michael and I walked past a mechanic shop, and this is what all the mechanics are doing. Squatting. We should squat every day. My husband and I do 10 of these every day. Okay. Now, when we first started doing it, Michael hated it. He was... Now he can just do it up and down and up and down. We need to squat more because it strengthens our pelvic floor. We need to squat when we go to the bathroom, and you can buy a squatty potty, which makes it very convenient. You would be shocked at how many people have lost their pelvic floor strength, and then prolapses happen, and they are not very comfortable. And so what happens is, when a lady has a prolapse, she goes to the doctor, and he said, "We'll sew meshing." Why does he have to sew meshing? Because there's no muscle tone. People are not taught to exercise and strengthen their body. If you want to enjoy your latter years of life, you've got to start working now, even if you're in your 20s. Got that? Keep the body fit, because muscle knows no age. Google a documentary you can watch on 90-year-old athletes. Well, I don't know if anyone here is over 90. It's time to strengthen the body. There are 800 court cases pending on what the mesh has done to people. Is the problem the mesh? Is the problem the doctors using the mesh? No. They've got no choice. There's no muscle tone. It's time to build the muscle. It's time to go into training students. Have you seen what the Olympian athletes go through? And yet, there's only one winner. The Bible says that, "No, you're not, that they that run in a race run all, but one receives the prize. Therefore so run that you may receive. Every man that strives for the mastery is temperate all things." Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, we an incorruptible. "I therefore so run, but not as uncertainly. So fight I, but not as one that beats the air. I bring under my body. I keep it into subjection. If by any means, when I have preached to others, I myself should be a castaway." That's found in 1 Corinthians 9:25. We're training for something more important than the Olympic Games. We're training for life. We're training for God's service. And guess who the winner is when you're living in a body that works? We are. It's time to go into training. You can't run? Try rebounding. Everyone can rebound. That's the little mini trampoline. And if you've got a little mini trampoline rebounder in your house and kids visit, where are the kids? I've come to the conclusion that people get old because they stop jumping. And if you can't leap, just start with this. Just start with that. And as you get better and better at it, and you can pay $500 and buy a NIDAC, very good one, or you can pay $1,000 and get a Billiken. That's even better. I was wanting a knee duck, my husband was complaining, then I told him about the Billiken for $1,000 and he bought me the knee duck. You just got to find out what works for you. If swimming works, swim. Exercise bike. That's good, you're holding on. But the rebounders are the best. Only takes up a tiny little part, you can fold it up, put it behind the mount. All you have to do is 3 minutes, 3 times a day. Strength comes by defying gravity, and there's no other exercise that defies gravity like the rebound. Your colon needs it, your stomach needs it, your pancreas needs it, your colon needs it, your liver needs it. Every part of your body needs you to get strong and muscular and move it. What about constipation? What will someone do for that? Get the right position, make sure they're drinking adequate water and having fibre in their diet, and exercise. And if someone says to me, I'm doing all that and I'm still not going, well, you can take herbs. A glass of prune juice will move things. A glass of pear juice will move things. So sometimes you need to be doing things like that initially until eventually the body will get into the habit of going every day. Because not only are we creatures of habit, but our cells and our organs are creatures of habit, and they just need you to train them. Because our cells are very obedient to the mind. And when we're stressed, guess what? They will be stressed too. You know, the research is now showing is that when we picture a strong, healthy body, your cells will obey that. It doesn't mean if you go to bed tonight picturing a strong, healthy body, you'll leap out of bed tomorrow morning like an Olympian athlete. You've got to do your part, but the mind is part of it. And so ends our journey through the gastrointestinal tract. A fascinating journey, unfortunately not known by most people, but I think it's important to know something about the house we live in, because Proverbs 14 verse 6 says, knowledge is easy to him that understands. My aim is to give you an understanding of your gastrointestinal tract so that you now have the knowledge on how to treat it. Are there any questions before we close?
With
yes.
the very popular nowadays, the large cans of formula milk being exported overseas to China, etc. But this formula milk, does it contain too much sugar?
The formula milk, is that the formula milk for babies?
That's right, yes.
Yeah. I would endeavour to say that the formula milk would contain a lot of sugar. I'm a great advocate for breastfeeding. I breastfed all my children. My last I breastfed till he was 3. He's 31 now. And it's just so easy. And so I just think that we should all be encouraging women to breastfeed. There's an organisation called Australian Breastfeeding Association, ABA, and they're volunteers that come and help women. And whenever I see an email from a mother, I answer that one before any others, because I know what it's like when you're home with your baby and you're not sure what to do. So ideally, breastfeeding is best. What's the next best milk? Well, the creature that's probably about the same size as a little baby would be a little goat, yeah? So goat's milk is very similar. And in Fiji, traditionally, Fijian women would give their babies boo juice. Boo juice is the immature coconut juice. So that, I think you can buy that as coconut water. And on my website, there are certain articles you can download, and one's called What Shall I Feed My Baby? And in that, I list some alternatives. Any more questions? Yes?
Is the vibrating machine you stand on?
Is the vibrating machine you stand on the same as the rebounder? No. In fact, NASA found that the rebounder was the only exercise or trampoline that prepared the astronauts for outer space, because there's no gravity in outer space. They found that after 2 weeks in outer space, these young, and they're basically athletes because they have to train for it, they come back and they've lost 25% bone loss and muscle strength loss. And they found that when they rebound, that's the one thing that prepared them for no gravity, and when they came back, it returned their strength quicker than any other exercise, because you're leaping up, defying gravity at every step. Something that moves you, you're not defying gravity. When you leap on the rebounder, 3 forces come together. It's defying gravity, acceleration, because you're going up in the air, then deceleration, you stop, and then you start falling again. The body doesn't know the difference between those 3 forces. So that's defying gravity, acceleration and deceleration. Any other questions?
With vitamin D, I've heard of vitamin D4, but how many forms of vitamin D are there altogether?
How many forms of vitamin D are there? I'm not sure. I know that the vitamin D that's created when the ultraviolet rays hit the skin and convert a form of cholesterol. Did everyone hear that? A form of cholesterol just under the skin to vitamin D. It takes 2 hours to form that vitamin D, and that vitamin D is stored in the kidneys, and when it's needed, then it's transported to the liver to be converted into a form of vitamin D that is used by the body. I would rather just look at that. In other words, we need more sun, and the darker the skin, the more sun is needed. The lighter the skin, the less. People say, how much sun do we need? I said, how long's a piece of string? Depends on the colour of your skin, and depends how much time you spend in the sun. In 2 weeks, Michael and I are having our yearly holiday, and we're going to a very sunny country, and I'll be going out into the sun every day, and I'll have my clock, and I'll do 15 minutes front, 15 minutes back, and I'll get under the umbrella. And I will not use sunscreen. I never have used sunscreen. And if I'm going out in the sun for longer periods, I'll just put a shirt on and a hat on. Makes sense, doesn't it? Have you looked at the names on the sunscreen packets? They're chemicals. And we're losing our Great Barrier Reef because Aussies are diving into the sea covered in sunscreen. It's going in and killing the marine life.
What, you don't advocate to use sunscreen?
I don't.
No.
But I do advocate wearing a hat. And if you've got light skin, I do advocate wearing maybe a shirt. Our exercise coordinator is Dutch Indonesian, so he has dark skin. And his wife is Samoan English, so she has dark skin. So their 2 boys have dark skin, and they do all our mowing. And they're on their mower in the middle of summer with no hat and no shirt on. They're as brown as berries. Their skin is so dark it can handle the sun. You see, skin cancer is not the sun. If 6 to 7 sunburns in your lifetime can double your risk of skin cancer, absolutely. But it's not just the sun. Yes? You had a question?
Talking about how the polyp keep growing back in the colon.
Why does the polyp keep growing back in the colon? One would have to investigate and see what type of food's been eating, see the exercise, see if they're given the right condition. But if you have something in the colon, that's why if you keep cutting the polyp out and it keeps growing back, I'd say stop cutting them out. In fact, I wouldn't even advise a colonoscopy anymore. If you apply castor oil compresses, that can penetrate deep. But having a diet like the ones I've suggested, that continually cleans out the colon. But I'd like to thank everyone for their attention this afternoon. Oh, I have one more question. I'll just take that.
Yes, so when is recommended to do exercise in the morning, before or after breakfast?
When's the best time to exercise, before or after breakfast? Absolutely before, because when you exercise after breakfast, all your energies are going to digesting the meal. And if you start exercising, you're going to get a bit of a war, because the muscles are going to want the energy, but the stomach wants the energy. And there is no need to exercise after breakfast, because as I showed in my last lecture, you have glycogen stores in your muscle that will give you energy to do your exercise. And if you run out of them, you've got your fat stores.
Yeah, just because when I do exercise early in the morning and then I have a big breakfast, it's just, it kills me. And it makes me go to bed again.
Yeah, well, if you have a large breakfast and it takes your energy, then I would seriously consider what is in your breakfast, because as Dr. Natasha Campbell-McBride shows, the 3 grains that are the hardest to digest. See, if you're sleepy after a meal, your poor old stomach is working so hard it's taking all your energy. And the 3 grains that are the hardest to digest are wheat, oats and barley. And I'm a 5th generation Scottish descent. That's about the only grain we grew up on. Is wheat, oats and barley. So maybe change your breakfast and see if that has an effect.
Thanks.
So I'd like to close with prayer. Father in heaven, thank you so much for giving us this information this afternoon. Thank you so much for this amazing body that we live in. May we each be inspired, Father, to look at it differently, to be more mindful of what we're eating, to give it the right conditions, that we might experience the health and longevity that you desire us to have, is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.